Have you ever noticed that when you're in class or some boring lecture or something like that, those New York time games, like the Wordle, the connections, crosswords, whatever, they seem awfully fun. Like when I enter a lecture hall and I know the lecture is going to be tough to get through, I'm really tempted to open up those New York Times games and start playing. And have you also noticed that when you're out having fun, or you're gaming at home, you're playing a sport, that doing the Wordle sounds awfully boring? Like, can you imagine playing basketball with the guys and then thinking, ah, I really want to do a crossword puzzle right now? No, of course not. No one would ever do that. But the reasoning for this gets into why you struggle to focus on the important things you want to focus on. So you can't focus because your brain desires a comparatively exciting stimulus compared to what you're currently doing. So this is why Wordle or other games like chess, cool math games, or Minesweeper are fun in class but not anywhere else. Because compared to class, they're fun, but compared to the other things you do in life, they suck. So why does this happen? Well, as I was researching, I discovered that there's actually many well-documented reasons for this happening, which also made me feel stupid for not knowing this before, especially considering the things I talk about in this podcast, right? I've made a video before about why you can't stop using your phone in class, and this is a similar concept. But anyway, let's get into why we always chase comparatively stimulating things. So the first reason is actually opportunity cost, which is something that our brain is always considering. Our brain hardly ever looks at things in isolation. We're always comparing it to the next best thing that is available. So, for example, when you're in class and you're trying to pay attention, the next best thing is the Wordle. The next best thing is chess. The next best thing is crossword puzzles. If you're already struggling to focus or stay awake, then the opportunity cost just becomes higher and higher for paying attention in class. Eventually, you just give in to the temptation to play these games because now you're just giving up boredom and nap time for fun games. And that's an easy battle for the games to win. But now let's say you go outside to play soccer after class. Soccer is super physically demanding. Your brain is always thinking about where the ball is and you're having fun, hopefully. Wordle would have to be so fun that you'd be willing to interrupt your entire experience to do it, and that's just not a battle it would ever win. The opportunity cost is just low. The next best thing you could obtain is just not worth it. So, another reason for this brain phenomenon is what's known as hedonic contrast, which is this idea that certain experiences are more or less enjoyable depending on the context that surrounds them. So, this is why cold showers feel great after intense cardio, but they feel terrible in the morning when you're trying to warm up and wake up. That's why, in my example, crosswords feel fun when you're in a boring class, but not when you're playing soccer and having fun and doing normal things. There's also what's known as the opponent process theory, which is the brain's attempt to maintain equilibrium by counteracting emotional states. So, for example, when you're bored, your brain tries to fill that void with something exciting. And the most immediately available source of that is your computer with all the games it has to offer. This also reflects newer research that describes boredom as a motivational state, which encourages your mind to do more than it's currently doing. But what's dangerous about this is obviously distracting yourself from the boredom rather than turning to something fulfilling or sitting in silence, even. Now, this is a good segue into what I want to talk about next. So, the most important part about all of this, about why our brains chase comparatively exciting things, about why we want to escape boredom, the most important part is to apply it to our life. So, how can we apply this knowledge of how boredom works and drives us to promote better focus on things that are important? Now, there's probably a million ways to apply this and to use this practically in your life, but I'll share the way that I've used it personally. The two most important things to battling boredom and a lack of focus, especially in, for most people, academic settings, is not fighting the boredom and instead using it as an opportunity for something greater. So let's say you're in class and you're really tempted to get on chess.com or something. Instead of telling yourself over and over, I will not get on chess, I will not get on chess, just sit with your boredom. Think about why you're bored. Reflect on your day, your feelings, your thoughts, and calm your spirits. The need for constant stimulation is a trap, and it won't actually help you remove boredom. It'll just help you distract yourself from it for a little bit. Use boredom as an opportunity to reflect and grow. This is actually what ultimately leads boredom to go away. Reflection is valuable. Thinking is valuable. And both can lead to coming up with new ideas that make boredom go away. But the key is not to find an escape from boredom. So, in other words, don't try to come up with something that might make you less bored, which will only lead you down distractions and not important things. But rather to change your thoughts so that you don't even remember that you were bored. And this is the difference between fighting boredom and sitting with it and letting it pass. And the same sort of thing works when you can't focus. When you can't focus, stop whatever you're doing. Stop overstimulating yourself. Stop trying to fight it. Put on some noise canceling headphones or something like that. Listen to something chill. Do prayers if you're religious. Stare at a wall if you have no other ideas. And sit with your lack of focus. Don't fight the lack of focus by pushing through your studies without doing anything about it, because you're only going to make it worse. You need to reset and forget that you actually couldn't focus in the first place. Because if you're thinking about trying to focus, then you're not actually focused. This seems obvious, right? But if you're doing your homework and you're thinking, wow, I really can't focus right now, what can I do to focus better? You may think you're solving the problem, but you're really just making it worse. So you need to bring your brain into a mindset that allows for focus to happen naturally without having to force it. If your brain is not in the mindset to focus, don't keep doing what you're doing because it's clearly not working. Change your mindset. Reset with one of the techniques I shared, and you will start focusing without even thinking about it. This is what works for me, and this is what I use to maintain focus when everything seems to be distracting me. And as always, stay mindful, and I'll see you all in the next episode.